Mark had been a USPS driver for over a decade, delivering letters and packages like clockwork. Nothing about that Tuesday afternoon seemed different till he reached the porch of a rundown house on the edge of town. The brown package in his hands looked ordinary at first glance, but something caught his eye. Taped to the top, barely visible beneath a loose flap, was a piece of crumpled paper. Written in shaky red ink were just 6 words. Asterisk, we are girls. Call 911. Asterisk, he blinked, heart skipping. Was it a prank? A mistake? But something about the uneven handwriting and the way the note was hidden, not displayed, told him this was no joke. Mark looked around. The street was quiet. No one at the windows, no sound behind the door. But everything in his gut said he couldn't ignore it. Instead of dropping the package, he held onto it, stepped back, and called it in. What followed spiraled quickly into something no one expected. A quiet neighborhood, a hidden cry for help, and one driver who just happened to be paying attention. Now, in this second part of the story, new secrets come to light darker and deeper than anyone could have imagined. The authorities thought they had seen the worst of it, but they were wrong. And as more clues surface, one thing becomes clear. This wasn't a one-time cry for help. It was a warning. What Mark discovers next will change everything. And someone is watching, hoping he misses it. Mark stayed parked down the block, eyes fixed on the worn-out house he'd delivered to so many times before. For years, it had just been part of his routine: drop a package, nod politely if someone answered, and move on. The man who lived there, Gerald Harlan, always kept to himself. A bit odd, maybe, but nothing ever screamed danger. Until now, after reporting the note to dispatch, Mark couldn't bring himself to leave. Something about the message stuck with him. Asterisk, we are girls. Call 911. Asterisk, the wording wasn't just desperate, was specific. There wasn't just one girl, there were more. And someone inside wanted out. A light flickered in the upstairs window. Mark leaned forward, squinting through his windshield. A silhouette moved past the curtain quick, cautious, like they were afraid of being seen. His stomach turned. He thought back to the last few weeks' packages arriving almost daily with no names, no return addresses. Always picked up the same day, always left on the same doorstep. He opened his delivery scanner and scrolled through old records. Nearly a dozen deliveries over the last 3 weeks alone, all to the same house. Something wasn't right. These weren't just online orders. They were patterns. And the man receiving them, he wasn't the one living completely alone like people. Thought just then, a neighbor's dog barked sharply, breaking the silence. Mark turned toward the porch and saw the front door slowly creaking open. Even though no one had come out, Mark's breath caught as the door inched open. No one stepped out, no voice called from inside, just hung there, slightly ajar, like an invitation or a warning. He stayed in his truck, muscles tense, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. He didn't want to jump to conclusions. But every second made it harder to believe this was just a mistake. Then he noticed something new. Tucked against the corner of the porch, mostly hidden by a rusted flower pot, was another package. It hadn't been there earlier. He was sure of it. He stepped out of the truck slowly, pretending to check his scanner while inching closer. As he neared the porch, a small, pale hand darted from behind the door and slid a folded piece of paper. Across the floor, Mark's heart pounded. He didn't look around. He just bent down, picked it up with a box, and walked back to his truck like it was any other delivery. Inside the cab, he unfolded the note. This one was even shakier than the first. Asterisk room 2. He's not alone. Hurry. Asterisk that changed everything. There wasn't just one victim and maybe not just one captor. The house that had always seemed quiet now felt like a trap. Mark thought about the neighbor, Mrs. Klein, who once mentioned seeing flickering lights in the attic. Back then, it sounded like nonsense. Now, it sounded like a warning they all missed. And time was running out. Mark's grip tightened around the note as he sat frozen in the cab of his truck. Room 2. He's not alone. That single line played over and over in his mind. This wasn't just a case of a girl trying to escape. This was something darker, something planned. And if Gerald Harlan wasn't working alone, that meant more danger, more people involved, and more time slipping away. He watched the house carefully. The door remained open, just a crack, unmoving. There were no sounds, no shadows passing the windows now, just a heavy stillness that felt like it was pressing down on him. He checked his phone. Still no update from the dispatcher. Where were the units? He had already sent 2 notes. Was it not being taken seriously enough? His instincts wouldn't let him sit still. Mark glanced at the neighbor's yard again. Mrs. Klein's curtains had moved slightly. Maybe she was watching. Maybe she knew something. He dialed her number 1 he had from helping shovel her walk last winter. Did you ever see anyone go in that house besides Harlan? He asked the second she answered. A pause. Then, quietly, she said, "There's a man with a scar on his face, comes through the back alley at night. Thought he was family, but I never saw him speak to anyone." Mark's heart sank. That wasn't family. That was someone trying not to be seen. Then, without warning, a loud thud came from inside the house. Something or someone had fallen. Mark jumped at the sound of the heavy thud. It echoed faintly through the open doorway and bounced down the porch steps. His first instinct was to bolt out of the truck, but he forced himself to stay put. He couldn't risk making things worse. He quickly texted dispatch again, now marking the call as urgent. Asterisk, loud noise inside the house. Possible struggle. Someone may be hurt. Asterisk, seconds felt like minutes. Then, through the porch window, a flash of movement, a figure, taller than the girls, dragging something. Mark could only catch a glimpse, but he noticed something chilling. Whoever it was, they were wearing a USPS jacket. It wasn't his. He hadn't taken it off all day. Someone was impersonating him. He stared in disbelief, trying to make sense of what he just saw. Was this how packages were being moved without suspicion? Was someone using his identity, his routine, to cover their tracks? His blood ran cold as he remembered a strange encounter weeks ago, when a man had waved at him near the depot, claiming they'd worked together before. Mark hadn't thought much of it. Now it felt like that moment had been part of a setup all along. Suddenly, the porch light flicked on. A clear signal. But from who? The door opened wider, and the silhouette of a young girl appeared barefoot, trembling, and holding something in her hand. It was his ID badge, and behind her came the sound of footsteps that didn't belong to her at all. Mark jumped out of the truck, heart pounding, eyes locked on the girl standing in the doorway. She looked barely 13, eyes wide with fear, clutching his USPS badge like it was a lifeline. She opened her mouth to speak, but froze as the footsteps grew louder behind her. Mark raised his hands slowly, stepping forward just enough to meet her eyes. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." But before she could answer, a man stepped into view, tall, with a long scar across his face and Mark's stolen USPS jacket draped over his shoulders. He wasn't surprised to see Mark. He didn't flinch. He just stared, calm and cold. "I figured you'd come back," the man muttered. Mark didn't speak. His phone was still recording in his pocket, and the police were close. He could hear sirens now growing louder. The scarred man grabbed the girl's arm, but she yanked free, bolting down the porch steps straight into Mark's arms. At that exact moment, headlights flooded the driveway, and 3 squad cars screeched to a stop. Officers surrounded the house in seconds. The man tried to run, but didn't make it past the backyard fence. Inside, police found 2 more girls locked in a hidden room 2, just like the note said, as the officers took statements. One detective approached Mark, holding something they found in the basement, a fake USPS badge, and several undelivered packages. But the twist: none of those addresses existed. The deliveries were never meant to be seen. They were coded for pickup only. Mark stood near the mailbox, watching as the last patrol car pulled away and the flashing lights faded into the night. The rescued girls were safe, wrapped in blankets and being cared for by emergency responders. The man with the scar, along with 2 others linked to the operation, was now in custody. It turned out the fake deliveries were a system for moving victims silently between locations. The phony addresses on the packages had matched drop points across the state. Had Mark not noticed that first hidden note, the cycle might have continued unnoticed. The girl who handed him his badge gave him a weak smile before being guided into an ambulance. Her quiet bravery had helped save not only herself, but others who'd been silenced for too long. The next day, Mark returned to his route. He passed the same streets, the same porches, but everything felt different. Neighbors waved a little longer. Some stopped him just to say thank you. Even the quiet ones watched him now with something new in their eyes: respect. Still, he stayed humble. To him, he'd just done what any decent person should have done when something didn't feel right. Looking back, it wasn't just about the note on the package. It was about listening to that gut feeling and taking action when it would have been easier to walk away.